Ambassador Shringla, welcome. How would you assess the current situation in Bangladesh, and what would you make of the Foreign Secretary's visit? What can he hope to achieve?
Well, I think the Foreign Secretary's visit is important for a number of factors. As far as I can say, this is the first official visit from our side, since the 5th of August and the change in regime. Although Dr. Jaishankar met his counterpart in the margins of the UN in New York, that was in a third location. I think this is the first time that we are actually meeting either in Dhaka or in New Delhi at senior official levels. Secondly, of course, the visit comes at a challenging time when, the situation seems to be of concern to our side. And at the same time, there have been some exchanges which have not gone down well in both our countries. There is a strong, building sense of anti-Indianism that is very evident in Bangladesh. My own reading of the situation is that, initially I had mentioned that the Yunus government, the interim administration, would or could have taken a more pragmatic, more, I would say, friendly approach in its relationship with India, although they would have associated India with support for Sheikh Hasina.
Yes.
But nonetheless, in terms of economic cooperation, in terms of friendly relations between two immediate neighbors, which enjoy one of the largest borders possible, over 4,000 kilometers, there should have been a level of pragmatism in the way that they've approached the relationship. But I think the political dynamics are such that the vacuum left by the departure of Sheikh Hasina has been filled in, not necessarily by people like Professor Muhammad Yunus, but Islamists, primarily the Jamaat-e-Islami.
Yes.
But also we see a lot of Hizb ut-Tahrir elements who are, more linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others. We see the release of some terrorists who committed some major crimes, including the Jamaat-e-Mujahideen Bangladesh, terrorists including those responsible for the largest arms haul in the history of Bangladesh in our entire region, the Chittagong arms hauls case of 2004, which by all accounts was meant for the Northeast, meant for Ulfa, would have completely destabilized the Northeast if that had come through. Those responsible for it, including the then Minister of State for Home Affairs, Lutfur Babbar,
yes,
who has been in prison. We're seeing that they will be released. So there is concern that those who are perpetrators of violence and terrorism against India are today being allowed to go scot-free, whereas those who are committing crimes against Hindus, against minorities, against Sufi, destroying Sufi shrines, temples, destroying the secular fabric that has been built so painstakingly from 1971 by the pro-liberation forces, is now being overtaken by pro-Islamist forces, fundamentalist forces, and I think this is a matter of concern for us.
This indeed is. And, there are reports from Dhaka that seem to suggest that Bangladesh may raise the issue of extradition of the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And you were just mentioning, about that. Does that put India on a sticky wicket during the Foreign Secretary's visit?
No, I think there is no reason for us to be responsive on that account. Here is someone who has, headed a government in Bangladesh that has had excellent relations. Not only that, I think in the 15 or so years that she was Prime Minister, I think the economy did very well. Bangladesh's standard of living took a dramatic leap forward. The living conditions of people became much, much better. I think in retrospect, you will see it as a really a period in which Bangladesh made the most significant advances in its economic development, in the development of conditions for people in terms of the governance, which allowed much greater percolation of economic resources down to the common man. And today, I think the sort of economic difficulties that the country is experiencing is one that the interim administration is finding it hard to respond to.
Yes.
And I'm afraid that anti-Indianism and a plank and platform that gives them is their recourse. It is not, I would say, a natural instinct. It is actually a fostered situation where you sort of encourage a certain anti-Indian narrative that is easy to sort of put across. And some of the exchanges we've had only reinforces that from their perspective. And that is what will keep this government and the interim administration and those who are behind it in power. Otherwise, I think credibility is being increasingly eroded because of lack of delivery, lack of any clarity towards elections or on any of the committed areas that the interim administration has come to power on.
Ambassador Shringla, in your appreciation, is Professor Muhammad Yunus in control, or is he just a figurehead? And like you were mentioning, are radical Islamists running not just the street, but also the administration?
Well, I mean, I would not say he is not in control. He certainly heads the interim administration, but there are those shadowy figures around him that, are important in his staying in that position. And as I said, Jamaat-e-Islami is one of the most successful of those organizations that have implanted themselves in a manner that enables them to influence public opinion. They've taken over the media houses. They've taken over universities like Dhaka University. They've taken over areas which influence public thinking. Their cadres, their Jamaat Shibir is very active on the ground. The mobs that you see are largely Jamaat controlled. And so it is vigilante justice against a whole range of people who had different ideas from them. The secular elements, the cultural elements, those who were pro-liberation and supported 1971. Don't forget, Jamaat-e-Islami was a pro-Pakistan outfit that supported Pakistan in 1971. They were the Razakars who fought against the Indian army and the Bangladesh Mukti Bahini and others who freed the country. And today, these same chaps are now back in positions of power and influence, and they're not going to leave the opportunity easily. And anti-Indianism is something that they would like to obviously, propagate. And that is what is happening. So the more the relationship appears tense, the more the exchanges are acrimonious between our two countries, the better it is for them. And they will get more support as a result of that. And I think the collateral will be the Hindus and the minority community, unfortunately. So I think Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri's message has to be quite tough to the Bangladeshis. Obviously, at the public level, it has to be very conciliatory. But I think speaking to Muhammad Yunus and others, I think he has to make our concerns very, very clearly articulated. And I think we should not in any way mince the message that we have to convey to Dhaka at this very critical point of time.
Because all the signals that seem to emerge from Dhaka are increasingly very hostile. And I don't just mean the targeting of minorities, especially Hindus, Buddhists and Christians, but also their association or, trying to get closer to Pakistan, the order for sugar given to Pakistan, relaxation of visa rules for Pakistan. How do you read these signals, sir?
Well, I think, again, the Muhammad Yunus and his interim administration know the overall geopolitical realities. They know that Pakistan is today, close to becoming a failed state. There's not much support that they can get from them. The only lessons they can get is on issues such as terrorism and, how to try and destabilize India. And they have a common plank. I mean, that collaboration that you look at, increased more liberal visas granted to Pakistani nationals, containers and shipping coming from Pakistan without the usual checks, I think is a recipe for some trouble, not only for us, but for Bangladesh also, because ultimately this sort of an approach will come back to bite you, because terrorism will not stay just beyond your borders. They will also, strike within your country. But then I think the interim administration is looking at everything from a short-term perspective, not from a long-term perspective. And clearly from their point of view, as I said, an anti-Indian plank and, in that endeavor, whoever you can collaborate with, whether it's the Pakistanis or others, you will do that because that suits your political interests. You unite people around that cause. You sort of encourage that and fan the flames of anti-Indianism. And as a result, it keeps you in power for as long as you can manage. And I personally think that that period is not very long. I mean, that period that the interim administration can stay there comfortably is limited.
But if you were to look at it from India's perspective, so you have a radical Islamist terror state on our western borders, Pakistan, and then you have rising radicalism in Bangladesh with access to, God forbid, Pakistani weapons and ammunition and the same ideology of terror. We now have fires on multiple fronts to fight, sir.
Yeah, it is a difficult period, and of course, nobody said that our neighborhood was going to be easy to handle. But I think we've got to remain engaged, and we have to be proactive in our neighborhood in order to deal with some of the issues that are emanating from there. It's not a normal situation where you'd have you'd observe situations, you report on it, but not do very much. I think in the neighborhood you need to, as I said, get engaged. You need to get involved. You need to use whatever leverage is possible. And believe me, we've deployed some of our greatest assets within our neighborhood. I mean, our diplomatic and administrative assets are very, very significant in our neighborhood, and we can make that difference. And I'm sure we are working to make that difference.
And can I ask, what is it that India can do at this stage? Because there's a Bangladesh, whether it's electricity or it's raw material for their industries, they're so dependent on India for food, fuel, and yet so hostile to India. There are some who suggest that Bangladesh in 2024 is becoming like Bangladesh or East Pakistan before liberation by India in 1971. Would you agree with that assessment, and what are India's options?
Well, I mean, I would hesitate in going that way because I think in today's context, coercion against populations is not a good policy. You need to ensure that the people of Bangladesh are with you. I personally feel that a majority of Bangladeshis are very much for a good relationship with India. I think they would support a more secular administration that has focus on peace and stability and economic growth and development. We need to work on those areas. We need to work on our strengths, our soft power, culture, language. I think wherever we can, I think we need to work on messaging, the larger population in Bangladesh, because they're not the ones who are, I mean, the instigators are those who are a minority in that country. I mean, if the Jamaat would go for elections, they won't win more than 5% of the vote. So the Jamaat, the Hizb ut-Tahrir, the Hifazat, the Jamaat-e Mujahideen Bangladesh, the Ansarul Bangladesh, so all of these groups, the Huji, etc., they're radical fringe groups. And, if you have elections tomorrow, they would not win, as I said, more than 5 to 7% of the vote, with all of them coming together on an Islamist flank. So the best they can do is to use this opportunity to create an anti-Indian sentiment, and we shouldn't fall for that. We should be very, very calibrated in that. We should not take any measures that would constrain or be directed against the majority of the Bangladesh population, because that is a sure way to lose the country. And we can't afford to have a country of 170 million on our immediate backyard, opposed to us. We can take issue with the administration. We can take issue with certain influential groups around them. But I think we should certainly reach out to the vast majority of Bangladeshis who are very, very positive in their sentiment towards India.
But, people like Professor Muhammad Yunus or those around him, those who insist that this was a students' revolution that actually brought radical Islamists to power, what's happening on ground? Statues of Bangbandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman are being brought down across the country. Currency notes, we are told, will see a change. So is this Operation Erase that's currently underway? In your appreciation, is this going to be a short-term one, or there is no talk of when elections will be held? This is not an elected government, so they may not win elections, but they will not let elections happen. The police are not powerful. The army is trying to control law and order, and I don't know how much are they able to do it or how much are they willing to do it. So do you see the situation deteriorate from here or improve?
Well, as I said, it probably gets worse before it gets better. They have appointed 5 commissions that are going to reform of the electoral system, of the law and order system, of the judicial system. A number of recommendations are expected, sooner rather than later. And once those are out, then there is an expectation that they would announce elections next year sometime. As I said, because I think the time available to the interim administration is not infinite. It is definitely finite, and that time is being now increasingly, I think, restricted because a number of factors, including global international developments, that impinge on the interim administration. So they would, I think, certainly come out with some sort of plan and a calendar. And the sooner they do, the better it is from their perspective. But we cannot allow this sentiment to be directed against us to enable them to, enable that longevity or that level of support that they could get through anti-Indianism. They're taking a page out of, some of the actions that we've seen in Nepal, for example.
Yes.
Oli sort of won himself an election based on an anti-Indian plank. The communists in Nepal have done that successfully. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't alienate populations and actually, in some senses, unintentionally help those who are actually,
hostile to us,
opposed to us.
So, and then there are those in Bangladesh who say that Sheikh Hasina is not likely to come back for a very, very long time, or her party, and that India should start engaging with the younger leadership, with the newer leadership, and not just talk about radical Islamists running that country, which according to youngsters in Bangladesh or several voices in Bangladesh is not true. What is your assessment, sir?
Well, it's difficult to say. I mean, I certainly think that, given Sheikh Hasina's age, she's 79, close on 80 years of age. It's normal that at some stage or the other, a younger leadership, and I may say a less tainted leadership, those who are, more professionally competent, more, I would say, committed, should be encouraged. And that could form the nucleus of a future political leadership in Bangladesh that would support not only a secular constitution and the spirit of 1971, but also good relations with all neighbors, including India. And as far as Sheikh Hasina herself is concerned, I think she will always remain a very important figure, one way or the other, in that country's polity. And I think that's bound to be the case, whatever it is.
And sir, there are those, including Sheikh Hasina, who've suggested the role of foreign powers, the deep state, that these powers intend to ensure that Sheikh Hasina stays out of power. India is perceived to have put all our eggs in the Awami League basket. Is that a correct assessment in your view? And the change that is happening in the United States post the 20th of January 2025 with Donald Trump in the White House, will that influence the situation in Bangladesh?
Look, I think we have reached out to all parties. We had good relations with the BNP. We had extensive contacts with political dispensations across the board. But at the same time, I think it was Sheikh Hasina's government that took the initiatives that got rid of terrorists and the anti-India terrorist infrastructure in Bangladesh.
Yes.
It was Sheikh Hasina's government that fostered economic cooperation and invited development cooperation from India. We were able to significantly improve border infrastructure that resulted in a tenfold increase in trade. I think the relationship really hit a very high point in all senses of the word. And I think that gave us really the ability to cooperate in an unprecedented manner. And believe me, that cooperation was based on mutual benefit. There was nothing that we did which benefited only us. Everything benefited both India and Bangladesh. And notwithstanding the rhetoric that you see today that is coming out of Bangladesh, the fact is that it's very important for Bangladesh's own economic development and well-being to work closely with India, because that's, cooperation is definitely a win-win situation. What you're trying today is ultimately detrimental to the interests of the people of Bangladesh.
Yes.
It may benefit the certain members of the interim administration and those around them. It may be encouraged by Pakistan and dispensations that are pro-Pakistan in nature, but it will definitely go against the people of Bangladesh, and I think that is the pity of it all. And I'm sure this is the sort of messaging that we need to convey at a direct level to people in Bangladesh. I don't think we should rely just on communicating with governments. We have channels of communication that can, amplify our message to people in that country. There is no language barrier in between Bangla and Bengali and us.
Yes.
And of course, I think we should be able to get our message across very, very clearly that we are for the people of Bangladesh, but we are not for some of the actions that we are seeing on the ground today.
So that's very well said. Let's just hope that message goes across to those in power in Bangladesh and they're able to checkmate the radical Islamists who seem to be running that country. For joining me here on India Today, former Foreign Secretary Vardhan Shringla, many thanks, sir.